And so we had one big takeaway from chapter 13 and 14. And it's this, that the people with the can-do attitude, they learned one important lesson. And what was that? That they cling to the right things. They cling to the right things. And one of the most important things that we can cling to as believers when we find ourselves in problems is that we focus or we cling to the promise that God has on our life, not the problem that He's put in front of us. That we have to cling to the promise that He's put into our hearts and not the problem that's oftentimes in our heads. Because the can't-do people, they never cling to the promise. They oftentimes cling to the problem. And as you can see in chapter 14, clinging to the problem and not the promise causes a few things. One, it promotes death. Clinging to the problem promotes death. We saw in chapter 14 that at some point, the Israelite people who came through the desert and all of those things, they actually started to say things like, it would have been better if we had died in Egypt. Or it would have been better if we had died in the wilderness. That death talk, that regret talk. And when we focus on the problem, it promotes death, the death of our dreams, the death of our motivation, the death of our will, the death of everything that God wants us, the death of our faith. But not only death, the problem will promote doubt. Will promote doubt. In chapter 14, not only did they wish they were dead, they started to doubt whether or not Moses and God actually cared or were able to take them through this problem. They saw giants in the land and they just wanted to know now, is God willing and God able? Now, mind you, this is the same God that took them out of Egypt, crossed the Red Sea, led them by a pillar of fire in the night and a cloud of smoke by day. And this is the same God that fed them manna from heaven when they were hungry and all of these things. And now, all of a sudden, they begin to doubt God. And you know why? Because their eyes and their hearts were not on the promise that God made, but it was on the problem that God put in front of them. And then finally, focusing on the problem promotes our demise. Ultimately, the people who said that they could not take on the enemies in the land ultimately did not. But to make matters even worse, all of them died not embracing the promise that God had. That was their punishment for doubting and for just dying in their faith. They met their demise right there. An entire generation of people never saw what God wanted them to see. And that's a microcosm of where we are. And that's a big lesson that we can learn. Moving from here to there means that we can have the right attitude by clinging to the right thing. And the right thing is to focus on the promise God has for your life, not the problems that He gives us in this life.